Hello. Hello. My name's Roger Hallam, and with a lot of other people, I'm in rebellion against the British government for criminal inactivity on the climate disaster. I'm here today to tell you what's going on and what has to be done at this late stage of the game. I was here last year. I talked to a whole bunch of people about the rebellion. Since then, 100,000 people have joined Extinction Rebellion in the UK. The fastest growing social movement in a generation.
I'm going to try and get it on his mic.
And this autumn, we're going into rebellion against the British government. Okay, so I'm an organic farmer. I went to Wales in 1999 to try and get away from the human race. I wasn't intending to have to talk to anyone anymore. I've done my 10,000 hours of weeding. And for the last 5 years, I've been at King's College doing PhD research on how to cause trouble effectively. And my proposition to you guys today is you who have come to see this talk are in the process of being thrown into this movie as well. And to give you a little idea of what it looks like, I'm going to give you a few short examples. Last week, I talked to a guy in California online. He's rich. In fact, he's very rich. He's a mate of Bill Gates. Okay? I thought he was going to be all slick. Turns out he's not that slick. He's actually in a mad panic because his house is burnt down. Okay? He lives near Los Angeles. There's a forest fire. His house burns down. He says to me, Roger, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. The previous week we got phoned up by this top diplomat from COP. I'm not that well up on diplomats, but it was a top one. I didn't know what COP was, but apparently COP is when all these super important people from around the world get together every year. They've been doing it for 30 years to decide to do nothing about climate change. Right? So what do we think he's going to say to us? Is he going to say, oh yeah, he wants someone from Extinction Rebellion to fly into Chile to do that, high-powered routine? No, he doesn't. What he wants us to do, quote, is shut down COP, right? This is the guy that's organising it. Why? Because he's at the end of his tether. A few weeks ago, around April, a BBC journalist phones us up. I don't know who it is, but he's on telly, telling us how to effectively close down Parliament. Interesting times. So what's going on? My suggestion is the world is entering into a nervous breakdown. Millions of people around the world are finally waking up that it's actually real. It's coming, it's happening now, it's real, and it's gonna kill us. We're shitting ourselves, aren't we?
Or crying.
Yeah, at night, alone.
Burying ourselves in a Facebook scroll hole.
Yeah. So what's going on? So when I talk to green audiences, I've been all around the country the last few weeks talking to people, and it's all people that know what's going on, except my proposition is we don't really know what's going on because you think you know, but you don't really know. And when you know, you haven't really felt it. And when you really feel it, you haven't felt it enough because it's about grief. It comes in waves. You read that Guardian article, wham, then you forget about it for a fortnight. There's still food in Tesco's, there's still your regular job, there's still your mates, it's all the same, and then bang, it happens again, over and over and again. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about climate change. The biggest lie about climate change is that it's complicated. We've been told that for 30 years. It's one of the main lies we've been told for 30 years. It's complicated, we've got to leave it to the experts, we've got to leave it to the diplomats, we've got to leave it to the politicians. No, it's not complicated. There's certain things which are killer facts. When you go to the doctor, there's something wrong with your foot, you know, there's a scratch on your arm, you're getting intermittent headaches, but you've also got lung cancer. Lung cancer is the killer fact, right? So I'm going to tell you some killer facts about climate change. The Arctic is now 70% melted. 70% melted, the ice in the Arctic. Not 2%, that would be of concern. Not 10%, that would be a reason for panicking. No, 70%. It's going. There's a Harvard professor, 2 weeks ago, he said he's 100% certain that the permanent ice in the Arctic will be gone by 2022. 2022. He's the guy who discovered the ozone layer in the 1990s. He's a brainy guy, right? When the Arctic is gone, there's this thing called a latent heat effect. It's going to rapidly increase the temperatures in the Arctic. It's going to create chaos in the Gulf jet stream. And it means we won't be able to grow food. That means people will starve. That's a killer fact. You can't get away from it. It's basic science. It's hot, there's ice, it melts. So let's look at it from another point of view. The Paris Agreement, we're supposed to be staying under 2 degrees centigrade, right? It's the biggest delusion in the history of humanity. There's no carbon budget. We're at 1.1 over pre-industrial. We've got the carbon lag. 30 years of emissions have still got to get translated into extra temperature, about 0.7 according to the literature. I can make that 1.8. Then when we've got rid of the fossil fuels, there's a slight inconvenient fact that the fossil fuels put carbon into the atmosphere. When the fossil fuels stop, the pollution goes and the world heats up, approximately by 0.7. Takes us up to 2.5. Then we have carbon release from the world's soils. When the world's soils heat up, they emit carbon. The latest estimate, by 2050, 1 degree centigrade. Takes us up to 3.5. This is a short talk, so I can't tell you about all the rest. The methane, the Amazon dieback, the forest fires, 50 feedbacks in the scientific peer-reviewed literature of feedback mechanisms that have been triggered. Where did anyone get the story about 2 degrees from? We've been lied to. So let's look at a little third way, okay? Pre-industrial, 280 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere. It's been going up exponentially. Used to be going up by 1 part per million, now 2. When I started telling people about the climate crisis, I was a little bit embarrassed because I put forward the proposition we'd soon be doing 3 parts per million. Last year, it was 3.5, 415 parts per million. 10 times 3.5, 35, plus 415, I make that 450. That's 2 degrees locked in. 2 degrees locked in within 10 years. These are the facts. These are the killer facts. It's maths. It's simple. It's not complicated. We're going to hell. It's time to get real. We've been doing this for 30 years, right? It's time to get real. But that's not the bad news, right? The bad news is social collapse. David Attenborough, the cop, the end of civilization, is not going to do a program on the BBC about the end of civilization. Why? Because it's not pretty. Go to Somalia, go to Afghanistan. The real story about the climate crisis is economic collapse. The carbon bubble. They're all shitting themselves that it's going to explode and it'll bring down the financial system. The global coastal property asset bubble. What's going to happen when it suddenly clicks in Florida that it's all going to go? What economic collapse means is you don't get your welfare payments. It means there's no money for the schools. It means house prices are going to collapse. Think about that one. It means the university courses are going to close. That's what's coming down the line. But it's worse than that because then there's the food, isn't there? Last year, there was no courgettes in the supermarkets in February, right? Do you remember that? Page 7 of The Guardian. A little bit of a laugh, right? 1 in 1,000-year snowstorms in southern Spain. I studied something called complex dynamics. Non-linear dynamics in complex systems. Sounds a bit abstract, but it goes like this. It means when you can't get the courgettes in southern Spain, no one knows it's a problem because you can fly them in from America, right? Yeah. Everyone thinks it's still okay. Complex systems, very resilient, but they've got one weak point. When they come under a critical mass of strain, they collapse all of a sudden. Totally. And that started to happen last year. There are food growing crises all across the Northern Hemisphere for the first time. Totally predictable. So it happened. 20% down in North America, in Europe, in Russia. There's a sustainability professor, 30 years in the trade, says there could be mass starvation in Europe within 3 years. If that happens 2 more years, we're going to run out of food. He's written a paper about it. It's been downloaded 415,000 times. Because people have finally decided they want to know the truth. It's like you've got that lump in your body, you ignore it, and then you finally go and see the doctor. And we've all decided we finally want to know. So it's real. When I started my talks about 3 weeks ago, it was 46 degrees in France. You can't grow food in 46 degrees. Then it was 42 degrees in Germany, all-time record. Last week it was 38 degrees in London, all-time record. It was like walking through treacle. It's real, it's coming, it's going to carry on. It was 53 degrees last April in Karachi. A few hundred people died from heat stroke. So we've got this idea, haven't we? It goes to 55 and there'll be a few hundred and then it'll go to 57. Sorry, no. It's non-linear. What that means is, at a certain point, there's this thing called the wet bulb effect. The human body cannot cool itself down, and it dies in 6 hours. So I go from a few hundred to a few thousand, and then there's going to be millions of dead bodies. This is what's happening in the animal kingdom. 200,000 deer died on the Russian steppe 2 or 3 years ago because of a little trigger. It's already happening. Death rates are increasing in San Salvador. Why? Because the sugar workers are dying early, because their livers are packing up, because they have to work in extreme high temperatures. 47% chronic malnutrition in Guatemala, because they can't grow food anymore. I've known about this for 15 years. Many of us have known about this for 15 years, right?
Yeah.
30 years.
Yeah.
We've known about it. We're all complicit. I was sitting on my farm 10 years ago thinking, someone else is going to sort this out, right?
Yeah.
The kids are going to sort it out. Greenpeace is going to sort it out. Someone's sorting it out. I'm just doing my farming bit. Then it rained from the 2nd of June for 7 weeks. I had 15 acres of vegetables. I had 25 people working with me on the farm. I lost every single vegetable in 5 weeks. I had 250,000 seedlings ready to go in. Didn't stop raining till the 3rd week of July. For those of you who don't know about food, that's too late. Okay? No one gives a shit. I almost went bankrupt. 25 people lost their job. I was out of my head with stress. I thought it was just me, and I found out the horticulturists all around the UK had been losing millions of pounds. We all thought it was a bit of a one-off, didn't we? Then it rained every day for about 7 weeks the following year. Then it was the warmest April ever. Then it was the coldest August. Then we had the coldest winter on record. -15 for a fortnight, 30,000 leaks, not a single one survived. Bang. Last year, it was the warmest summer ever in Wales. It went 12 weeks without raining, but it didn't matter because I don't grow food outside anymore because I can't afford the risk. Used to be about 20 growers in West Wales, now there's 4. One of the guys who packed it up, he said to me, I might as well go to Swansea Casino and put my 40 grand down. Because I don't know what's going to happen. There's tens, hundreds of millions of farmers around this world shitting themselves about what's going to happen. Because no one knows. Is it going to be the warmest summer on record? Is it going to be the coldest? Is it going to be the wettest? Is it going to be the driest? No one knows. So that's climate change. Can you feel it? I'm going to tell you about something more difficult. That's the climate science. There's something else. The social science. What the social science says is there's something you can do about it. That's why it's more difficult. When Martin Luther King organized campaigns in the Deep South in the 1960s in the Civil Rights Movement, the joke was he had 2 books. The autobiography of Gandhi and the Bible. That was it. There's now been 30 years of social scientific research on how to rapidly change society in a progressive way. In a crisis. Rapidly. One of the main scholars, Erica Chenoweth, Harvard professor, another one. She was in the UK earlier in the year. She finished off her talk with a joke about Martin Luther King, and then she said, But we've got no excuses now. We've got no excuses. It's not like we don't know. The situation is that if we want to deal with this crisis, if we want to deal with this emergency, like an emergency, there's one thing that needs to happen. And that's mass participation, civil disobedience. That's what it is. I'm not saying that because I'm trying to be unpleasant. I'm not trying to be reductive. I'm not trying to be rhetorical. I'm just telling you, as an award-winning social scientist, it's 101, right? That's how it works. Because we already know it. 30 years of failed campaigning, right? In 1981, I went to my first Green gathering. In 1982, I went to my first Green Party conference. I've been there doing the permaculture, doing the weeding, running to the hills. Doesn't work. We've all been sending the petitions, haven't we? We're doing the leafleting, we've been doing the stalls, we've been giving £3 every month to Friends of the Earth. We've been working really hard, we're lovely people, and it hasn't worked. And recognising that failure is the first step to realising what our responsibilities are at the present time. And our responsibilities at this time, this end point, for everything that we love, is to take non-violent, direct action. So let's make it a little bit more concrete. What it means is people have to get arrested and they have to go to prison. Extinction Rebellion is having a big debate and had a big debate about flying drones at Heathrow. Some of you might know about it. Let's talk about it. Some people don't want to do it, some people do. So out of respect for the people that don't, it's going ahead as an independent action. 500 people are potentially thinking about flying a drone, a toy drone from Argos at head height in a park near Heathrow. 100% safe, 100% illegal. The corporate fossil fuel state cannot tolerate any disobedience. If you get arrested, you're likely to go into prison or remand. There could be hundreds of people in prison. In October, thousands of people are going to descend in London. As far as I'm concerned, we're not leaving. That's what civil disobedience looks like.